When everyone is euphoric about Bitcoin, it's going to change the world. Maybe it's not the best time to go all in, which is probably might going to start happening in like the coming year or so. You have to be humble too that adoption is growing, but it goes through bubble phases as well. You can't like rely on closed source stuff, trusted third parties, companies. You have to use open source tools. When you're looking up your transaction, using the Mempool.space code, connect it to your own node and look up it like locally in your home. Because that was always like the number one requirement, that you can connect it to just your own node to visualize the whole Bitcoin blockchain and look up your own transaction completely private without going to some third-party website. Because if you go to any other blockchain explorer or even our sort of, you don't know if there are weblogs that's connecting your IP to this address and this coin is in this transaction. So basically you can see make a profile out of you, which coins you're interacting with and stuff. So I don't see that as like the future of Bitcoin. The future of Bitcoin is...
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. It's the easiest way to show your support and help the podcast grow, bringing great content to even more listeners like you. Plus, subscribing means you'll never miss an episode. And a big shout out to Stampseed for supporting the show. Their indestructible solution is perfect for protecting your Bitcoin seed phrase. Use BTC Story for 15% off at stampseed.com. Now, let's get to the reason you're here. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to another episode of Your Bitcoin Story podcast with your host, Gigi. Today, we're diving deep into the world of Bitcoin with an extraordinary guest who has truly shaped the Bitcoin ecosystem. Joining us is none other than Simon, the creator and co-founder of the revolutionary open source project Mempool.space. Simon and his team have built a platform that's been an essential tool for Bitcoiners around the world, offering a real-time insight into the Bitcoin mempool. If you're ever exploring Mempool.space, you know that the impact their work has on understanding and optimizing Bitcoin transactions. We'll explore Simon's Bitcoin journey, the story behind Mempool.space, and his vision for the future of Bitcoin and its infrastructure. So whether you're a seasoned Bitcoiner or just starting out your journey, get ready for a conversation that's both inspiring and educational. Let's dive in. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And for some viewers that are watching this, they will see that I'm proudly wearing today my Mempool.space hat, which actually was gifted to me by Simon when we met and randomly shared the taxi from the hotel to the venue at BTC Prague. And I had no idea going into the taxi that Simon is the creator and co-founder of Mempool.space. And little do we know, here we are today and recording a show together. So,
yeah,
perfect. Perfect. So let's start it off. Can you share your Bitcoin origin story? How did you first discover Bitcoin and what inspired you to get involved?
Yeah, you want to hear the short one or the long story?
Well, let's go for the longer one. We have some time.
Okay. All right. Well, how did I get into Bitcoin? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could say, like I used Bitcoin, I started using Bitcoin like 13, 14, just as online payment thing. I was paying for domain names, servers and stuff like this because I was running some websites and doing some web development stuff. But I never understood like Bitcoin as a savings tool or anything like that. But in the years after that, I got very into the economics of like libertarianism and Austrian economics and stuff like that. From following that route, I rediscovered Bitcoin again, like in new light. So that was like maybe in 16 and 17. Like 16 when I started to get interested again. And in 17, it was like, I want to focus more about Bitcoin, So me and I got a friend to let's just sell everything we own and just move away. Like I was living in Sweden then, and I was like, I wanted to get away from there. So we moved together to Malta. So I was living in Malta for a while. And as I just recently quit my job, I was like, I'm going to focus just every day and just studying Bitcoin. And that's what me and my friend did. Watching Andreas Antonopoulos, reading and listening to all this kind of stuff in like a few months of time, just every day. And I think it was there's like spring in the summer of 17 at the same time the bull run was just getting started for real. That both me and my friend was like, this is what we want to do for the foreseeable future, because this tool and this the impact of Bitcoin and the freedom tool as a freedom tool, you can keep your savings in the cloud, and we can change the whole financial system. I mean, this whole dream of the libertarian, the future of freedom, that was like the driving force, I think. So in mid 2017, I was starting to do like projects in Bitcoin. I want to learn more by playing around with a node and see what kind of, because I had a background in web development, right? So I did some small websites with Bitcoin. I think it was end of 2018 when I created Mempool.space. It came from the drive that I want to create something, I want to do something, and also when I was using Bitcoin and I played around with transactions and stuff, I had a problem that when I went to a block explorer, I didn't know what's the status of my transaction is. Like, when is it going to get confirmed? Is it going to get confirmed? I don't know, because the block explorers back then was like, it just says unconfirmed, and you have to reload,
refresh,
and you wait on refresh, and it's like, when is it going to be confirmed? You don't know. If it's back in the queue, you don't know. But in my head, I was visualizing like this queue of the mempool is like, and it's filling up. So Mempool.space, I just created like the first iteration in a few days, and I published it like on Mempool.space. And I remember I have a tweet like announcing my new Bitcoin project, Mempool.space. And I was quite proud of that one, and I was sharing it. Like, I went to Riga in 2019, like a few months later. I think, let's see, Riga. And I was, people asked me, so what do you do with Bitcoin? And it felt so nice to be able to finally say something, not just, oh, I'm just a pleb, I'm not doing anything, but be able to say, this is what I'm doing for Bitcoin. Like, this is very rewarding. So I can finally say, yeah, I'm working on this blockchain explorer, like Mempool Explorer. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, nobody has seen that before. It wasn't until like 2020 when like Wiz joined the project, because Wiz just randomly reached out to me. It was like 2019, summer 2019, and he was like, your website is cool, like, collaborate, make it an official open source project, because by that time I hadn't published the code, but it was always back in my mind that I wanted to be free and open source software. He was like, you should publish the code, I can host it on my servers, because Wiz has the server infrastructure background. So I was like so happy to not have to pay for the server bills anymore. I was paying like DigitalOcean or something. Wiz started hosting it, and we published the project. And then Wiz started to have a lot of visionary ideas, like how we could take this project further. That is how like it started to grow. And we worked together like for the whole it was like the lockdown period, like in 2020. I was just traveling around the world basically at that time. I left Malta. I was traveling a few months in Thailand, a few months in Vietnam, and then I was in Vietnam when the lockdowns hit, and I was staying in Vietnam. And I remember traveling around. I was just working on Mempool and with Wiz, and every day they had like hours long like video calls every day. Tweak this, add this, stuff this. But still, it was very like not too many people knew about the site. But then the halving came in 2020, and we made this halving countdown thing. We have like a golden block that's coming in the countdown, and we suddenly saw everyone on Twitter was starting to share the Mempool.space. I saw like in the Bitcoin magazine office, they had a live stream and they showed Mempool.space on a big monitor showing the countdown, and it was like everywhere all of a sudden. Yeah, and then the fee market. I mean, the fee market had spiked since 2017, and that was before Mempool.space existed. So for the first time, like, we saw these crazy fee spikes and the backlog of transactions in the end of 2020, and that was really when everyone just had to go to Mempool.space to see where's my transaction stuck and where's my transaction, what's the fee right now and stuff. So that's when it really took off. Everyone started to share it everywhere. So that was really a turning point. Well, so yeah, I think I made it short, like
no, but it was nice
story.
You put out the full
right now.
From getting into Bitcoin to how Mempool was born.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to dissect it a little bit.
Yeah, you could, sure.
So essentially, as you said, Simon, it's amazing to find a way how to contribute in the space instead of just being a pleb around it and posting some memes
Right,
on Twitter.
right.
It's that fulfilling, and you kind of went way above and beyond, instead of just launching another wallet or doing some simple tweak where you're kind of today. It's like the get-go tool for every Bitcoiner that wants to execute the transaction to see what is the current fee, what's happening with the transactions, and even not just the transactional part for the listeners. On Mempool.space, you have stats on mining, the real hash rate, the Lightning Network. I mean, there's so many things. And another thing I love, like the live transactions that are currently happening. Whenever people tell me, no one's really using Bitcoin for anything, I like popping out, mempool.space.com and showing them the live transactions, and it's just going, they're seeing all of them. And I go, well, really? Nobody's using the on-chain for anything? So there's so many things that is on it. It's like a plethora of things. But
Yeah.
going back to the beginning.
I'm as surprised as you, GG, on how far we came with this website, which is just we still joke about it like in the Mempool team, that it's just my little side project. Because a lot of projects just start out as someone's side project, right?
Correct.
And Mempool.space was just one of a few different ideas I had in the beginning. I started to build some other small Bitcoin-related web apps before, and just Mempool.space was the one that really took off.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And to be honest, these like passion side hobby projects tend to be much, much more relevant and much, much more impactful than someone striving out, oh, let's make a business in Bitcoin. Because that usually doesn't really sell. It's about, finding something, a problem for yourself or something you're passionate about. Like in your case, doing the Mempool space. In my case, with the podcast, I launched it a year and a half ago as a side thing, my way to contribute back to the community, to share, inspiring stories of people, how Bitcoin's changed their lives and all the incredible work they're doing with it. And now just 1 month ago, I've gone full time into this. I decided, I want to dedicate my passion to podcasting and also helping education / mentoring, helping people to take self-custody of their Bitcoin. And I would have never got to the stage if I, didn't have this passion side project, like in your case, how do I do something that will bring value to the space? So this is just another kind of inspiring idea to all the listeners. If you have something that you're passionate about, if you want to do it, just go out and do it. You never know where that road will lead you. And I'm sure, Simon, today in 2025, if someone would have told you this 6-7 years ago, that Mempool would be so impactful, you would say, no way, right?
Yeah, no way. And I remember starting Mempool.space. There was so many already block explorers, and I thought I was super late into Bitcoin in 2017.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was already infrastructure for everything. That's what it felt like. And I had just this niche little tool that I needed for what I felt was needed for my personal use. And now it's like one of the top block explorers in the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. I could never have imagined taking to this point. So yeah, go ahead and ask what you were prepared to ask me something.
Yeah, no. So I had another aspect I wanted to highlight about is the open source key aspect. I'm a true believer and supporter of open source. I believe that any Bitcoin project should be open source, because at the end of the day, you should be transparent, and devs and anybody that wants to should be able to go over the code. So as you said, you briefly mentioned that in the beginning, it was, you didn't release the code publicly, but it was always in the back of your mind. How strong is the open source aspect to you in the space?
It's everything. I mean, when it comes to especially Bitcoin infrastructure and these freedom tools, you have to think that we're building stuff, or we want to build stuff that has to be able to last for generations. So if you're building closed source stuff, you're basically building a dead end. Like open source is what will survive in the long term. And when you're dealing with like money, savings, hardware wallet, blockchain explorers, viewing your old transactions, like all this sensitive stuff, you can't like rely on like closed source stuff, trusted third parties, companies. You have to use open source tools. Just like so like when you're looking up your transaction or your private transactions, you can actually, using the Mempool space code, connect it to your own node and look up it like locally in your home. like on an Umbrel device, or just you can install the software yourself. Because that was always like the number one requirement, that you can connect it to just your own node to visualize the whole Bitcoin blockchain and look up your own transaction completely private without going to some third-party website. Because if you go to any other blockchain explorer, or even our sort of, you don't know if there are weblogs that's connecting your IP to this address and this coin is in this transaction. So basically, you can see make a profile out of you, which coins you're interacting with and stuff. So I don't see that as like the future of Bitcoin. The future of Bitcoin is that everyone run their own node, right? Especially like as a
Correct.
company or as a private individual, like what you're doing, you're doing it in your own local isolated environment. And also like the second reason is just the freedom tools we're building. When I've been Mempool.space, I never thought that I'm going to build a company, I'm going to make money or something. It was only, I'm just building a tool for the Bitcoin ecosystem because I want to help Bitcoin, right? So that's the main thing. And now we happen to have been able to make a company as well, so out of it as well, and keeping it as an open source company. So there's like two parts right now, which is very common, like in business wise, because there are many open source companies that still manage to survive, like Linux, like MySQL, and all this.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. You, Simon, touched upon a super important part about, running your own node and having your mempool space on your node, Umbrel, or in my case, I'm a big lover of Start9. I run my own Start9 node, and I have my
Yeah.
own app of mempool space that I use. And to me, it's just shocking how many still we have, like Bitcoiners, like even they call themselves Bitcoin maxis, and they still don't run a Bitcoin node, which is mind-boggling, right?
I know, but it's quite a hurdle to get over. Like personally, I just run a node on my local laptop, and I can run my local mempool space. Like if I open a Bitcoin wallet, I can just go it straight to my node. But most people don't want to like do the effort of like connecting all this stuff up because it could actually be very technical. You can buy like an Umbrella on Start9 and you just one click
Plug
and you
and
have
play.
it in your home. But it's still a little bit tricky. Like let's say you want to use this wallet on your phone or your laptop. It's still a bit tricky to connect it to use your node. I think most people don't know how that actually works. There's a lot of there's a lot of opportunity in this space to make this stuff more easy to use.
Yeah.
But it's getting much better. It's much better now than it was like 5 years ago. Before you had to like run like commands and know Linux to know it, but now you can just one click these this Start9 devices and just buy one of those or whatever.
Well, like to be honest, like I don't consider myself a techie person at all, and I even did my own little DIY project of building my Start9 on like a secondhand nuke, which was very straightforward, and then connecting my Sparrow wallet to my node was super simple as well. So yeah, it's not as easy, but at the same time, as you mentioned, Simon, you don't need to open the command line and be doing some, I don't know, crazy computer science stuff. It's if you want to do it, it can be done, but I agree, it's people need to have a reason to do it. Maybe a case is people don't see the monetization aspect of it. It's like, why should I run a node if I can just use other people's nodes? But then on the other hand, it goes against the ethos of being a self-sovereign individual, not relying on is this data from this node operator actually true, or is it manipulated? But just to me, the main reason is to further decentralize the Bitcoin network as a protocol. If we all run our own nodes, as especially the newcomers to the space who have no idea what the block size wars were, the node runners essentially won that war. It wasn't the big miners, it wasn't the big companies, it wasn't BitPay. It plays a vital role in keeping the protocol healthy.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm just seeing what people are doing around me. When I see people, and a lot of people just choose like an easy path. Maybe they get like a hardware wallet from Ledger or Trezor, and they just use the software that comes with it, and figure it doesn't tell you to just connect it to your node or something. It just goes to their servers. I think most people are very convenient about this stuff and don't really think about it.
I guess there's a lot.
Probably
No, go ahead.
So I'm not sure what's like what the solution is, but people are like very convenient in nature, and like you said, you see people that have been in Bitcoin for 10 years and they already know this stuff, but they like embarrassingly admit that they don't run their node. So I don't know.
I, I would say it's not even a matter of education, because there's plenty of education out there. May there be podcasts, YouTube videos, courses, and stuff. But just like that push to people, like I guess people are not used to it. It's such a like new technological advancement where you're running your own node and you're verifying everything yourself, that we've never had that previously with anything, especially with the old financial world with banks. You didn't have your own local bank branch server verifying all the transactions that are happening on the Visa terminal. So I guess it's just a matter of time, and I don't know, we'll see. I'm hopeful that we'll have more. There's that website, I believe it's called Node. I'm sure you know about it. The one, it's called Node, Live Node, is something that shows how many nodes are actually live, and if you believe it or not, right? Don't trust but verify.
Right. I know Luke Dash Jr. is running a
His own.
page like this, like monitoring like how many nodes are active in the network, like how many are private and how many are public and stuff.
And it's
I
around
think
like
they're
20,
like
30,000, right? It's not more than that, even
yeah,
into
I
that.
think, but I think it's around 20, 30 like public nodes, but
Okay.
like private nodes, if you scan the network, it's probably a lot more, maybe
lot more.
100,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like are more private hidden nodes. You could always need more nodes. The more nodes, if everyone ran a node, like the network would be so like just secure and just hard to change.
No, for
Like if
sure.
someone proposes a fork or something, you would never be able to change. But so it's a little bit hard to understand how this mechanic works. But if nobody ran a node, then changes would easier
Of course.
happen. But it's like everyone's just protecting themselves and protecting the Bitcoin network together, I guess.
For sure.
Running nodes.
For sure. And the prospect of a hard fork coming on, there's been some talk about, and especially lately, about BlackRock, at some point proposing a hard fork to control their Bitcoin. What's your take on that,
Yeah.
Simon?
I mean, my take is that we can't count anything out because you can say Bitcoin is it's here. It's we don't have to do anything. We don't have to care. We don't have to. We can just like lean back and relax, and Bitcoin will just take over the world. I don't think that's true. I don't know how many people have that viewpoint, but it seems like sometimes you can feel like this is a very common like viewpoint. Like Bitcoin is changing everything. It's perfect as it is. You don't have to do anything. But actually, it's a constant fight between like keeping the network intact and not being affected by this other forces and ideas, because it is possible to soft fork Bitcoin. It is possible to hard fork Bitcoin. It's theoretically possible to like change almost anything with a soft fork. Actually, most people don't realize that. Like for SegWit, for example, before everyone will know that if you want to change the block size limit from like 1 megabyte to 2 megabyte, you have to actually hard fork. We're changing like a 1 to 2, like the block size. That would be a hard fork. But we still managed to soft fork a block size change. So now it's like double. Now it's like around 2 megabytes, right? And that was just a soft fork because you just created new output types. And it's theoretically possible to do the same, like with increasing, like adding censorship or even increasing like the maximum supply. I think that's possible. Or if you don't have a huge network of nodes that fight this kind of changes and actually take a stand, it is a slight possibility, like a risk. And I don't know how big of a risk. Maybe it's not a risk right now. Maybe in 10 years it's not a risk, but maybe, who knows, in 100 years it might be a risk if we let Bitcoin centralize too much. So that's why we have to keep the fight, I guess, to keep it as decentralized as possible. And I know there's a lot of people in core and also the companies that give out grants and stuff, the research, like how do we better the decentralization of Bitcoin. They are funding like Stratum V2 research and stuff like this because there are a lot of people that are interested in like bettering this part of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So, and it's definitely required.
I agree. At the same time, there's other people in the space that don't want nothing to change. For example, like one of them, the prominent one is Michael Saylor. He doesn't want to make any change to the protocol. He kind of just thinks, let's just leave it as it is.
Yeah.
But I think that's not the solution either.
Bitcoin grows, you're gonna have different groups that want different things.
100%.
In the history, even when Bitcoin was super small in like 2016, 17, you had groups splitting off, right? They forked off the Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin SV because they had different opinion. What should be Bitcoin? How should Bitcoin change in the future? And I think you're still going to have this kind of separate groups growing. So you have like the Michael Saylor crowd. It's perfect. We just need to store it in an ETF in some custodial at Fidelity. And then you have like the cypherpunk parts, and then you have the builders. I know there's a lot of builders that are building infrastructure for Lightning and Arc and this wallet. They want new soft forks. They want covenants. They want OP-cat. They want check template verify to add covenants. They want like build this stuff, and then you have another camp who's like, we need to lock in the protocol. It's too risky. There's gonna be a constant fight. I mean, definitely, most likely gonna have another fight. Like the block size war fight is gonna be like the covenants fight or something. It's very likely as the community grows and grows, you're gonna have different factions like this. So,
but that's also good, right? If there would be no controversy and no kind of fight, then things would get pretty boring and the protocol would get pretty stale. But this way, you're always kind of pushing to how to improve it, hopefully in the better side.
But I think also when there are more factions that are pushing different direction, that is also when you can't reach consensus for a change. It was easier to change Bitcoin in the past. Like the first few years, just Satoshi, just hard forking and doing stuff. But nowadays, like someone said that we need this patch, and then they're fighting and on the email list and the GitHub, and then it never happens. But never get consensus. It feels like the older Bitcoin gets, the more we cement the consensus rules. So I think that's why I personally think it's important to add some of these new capabilities, like covenants that can. Although I don't know all the like what could happen, like the risk and stuff, but I'm still leaning a bit positive to add this stuff because it will open up to a lot of new possibilities of what it can build, like layer 2 solutions like Arc and other scaling solutions, better vault, better self custody solutions. And because we have to do it before the protocol is so locked in and we can never reach consensus on anything anymore.
True.
So it's like, if you want to build on Bitcoin, like you can't build on the base layer anymore. It's like, it's already set in stone. And you have to build on Lightning, you have to build on another layer 2. That's what I hope actually as well.
Yeah.
For Bitcoin to be, because that is how we will be able to protect the base layer security, protect the 21 million limit and all that.
A quick message from our awesome partners at Stampseed. Future you is dependent on you. Don't let them down. Future you is set for life with Bitcoin, but only if you back up your seed phrase properly. No napkins, no phone notes, just Stampseed. Fireproof, waterproof, life-proof. Use BTC Story for 15% off at stampseed.com. Future you just fist bumped you. Don't mess this up. And now, let's get back to the episode.
I agree. And that's what we're currently seeing with the CTV, right? Like, how do you come to a consensus? Like there's both camps, pro, against, and it's just, kind of Twitter noise. But I totally agree with you, Simon. Like the more people and the more parties that get involved in Bitcoin, it just gets harder and harder. It's not like it was 7-8 years ago.
Right. Yes, it's interesting to follow. I guess it'll take some time, but I think there will finally be some consensus, like after a few years of fighting or just discussion or something.
Well, the block size war with much less participants was like a two-year battle. So I guess this one might even be like a 4 or 5 year battle going into close to 2023 until things get decided. On the contrary, I have nothing against that. I would rather it takes many years than we decide on something snappily now and we kind of break what we have. Yeah,
that's true. Everyone has to lower the time preference. That's but it's hard because everyone as humans, they're like naturally high time preference, and maybe you have a lot of companies invested in something that
needs to go out tomorrow,
need to work on Bitcoin, and they want it to come out next quarter or something.
Yeah, I agree. The traditional company and shareholder incentives are not very aligned with Bitcoin protocol evolution, but I guess that's just something they'll have to learn to live with. But yeah, I want to go back to another point which you mentioned, kind of the 2020 breaking point and the spike in fees, which I believe highly correlated with the release of ordinals, right, and inscriptions. That was the main catalyst, right, for the fee spikes, or no?
No, I think I was talking about the first fee spike that came with the bull market just in general
Okay, all the
in
transactions came.
2020. And then the ordinal stuff, I think it came in like 2021 or 2022 or something when they released the first ordinals and the JPEGs and stuff.
Yeah.
So that came later as another like huge, massive fee spike. I think it was 21 or
Beginning
22.
of 2022, I think you're right. It was end of 20, because 2021 was the big NFT year when everybody was releasing NFTs on all
Yes,
their chains, and then kind of
right,
ordinals was the next NFT 2.0 on the
yeah.
Bitcoin chain. But yeah, I don't want to dwell on the ordinals and inscriptions. There's plenty of other content out there. I want to talk more about this spike in fees for the bull run. Today, where we are, I don't know, are we at the beginning of the bull run, mid bull run? To me personally, we're already, if you look for the last 12 months, we've already been in a bull market. And the fees today, if we open up Mempool.space, very likely you will see a 2-3, sat VByte fee, which is kind of shocking, because if we go back to the previous bull run, it was super high. You were paying 20, 30, 50 bucks to put through a transaction. And now you can do it for a mere, 10, 15 cents a transaction. What do you think's kind of impacting that? Do you think it's this whole ETF, kind of centralized Bitcoin trading that's affecting it, or is there something else?
I can only speculate because I don't have any like data why it's like this, but I agree it's a little bit surprising because like the last cycle, the halving was in the spring and then the bull run started like in autumn. And when the bull run started, the mempool activity was really high and it's just increased for every week, every month. And we haven't seen that yet. It's like what it seems like is that retail investors hasn't returned yet. Actual new people adopting Bitcoin, which means that they will buy a wallet, they will go to an exchange, buy Bitcoin and withdraw, which causes more transactions. I think it's partly have to do with the ETF. Like people might buy the ETFs instead, because I think the main, like if you see the globally, I think 80% of like the visitors on the Mempool.space website and the people are buying Bitcoin are US based.
Yeah.
Like Americans are the ones that are like leading the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. Actually, that's what it feels like. They might go to buy the ETF instead for like convenience, tax reasons, and that stuff. But it also is that retail hasn't really arrived. I've seen like some graphs on like showing the social activity. If you look at like activity on YouTube, crypto YouTubers and Reddit and these forums, and it's still very, very low. We haven't entered any bull run in the sense of like people getting engaged. It just slightly started, but it hasn't reached that level that it was in autumn 2020. So I think it's coming. It's just a little bit delayed. I mean, I guess it's coming.
What if it's not coming?
I don't know. I maybe we just start the bear market tomorrow and it was just clear at the mempool. But I mean, if you look at the mempool graph now, we're mostly clearing out like old stuff that was like since many months ago, like old 1 sat per VByte transactions that been stuck for 6 months, 9 months. We see clearing now and then. So it's definitely extremely low activity for what it should be, because the blockchains are limited. Like you can only do so many transactions. And the adoption is supposedly growing, like the price is growing at least, like we are all-time highs. If you have like global adoption just growing, it should be more and more scarce to use the block space. But it seems to be like the opposite is happening. Like the block space is used more efficiently. Like people are using more layer 2 solutions. Maybe they're using more like custodial Lightning wallets or something, and maybe they're using like the ETFs and other products that removes pressure from the main chain. But
which would be good if that's the case, because we want people to be, using Lightning and Liquid and other.
I mean, I want to hope that what's going to happen in just a few weeks or a month or something is that the price is going to go way across 100K, and the retail adoption, people are going to wake up once again, as they do a little bit too late, and realize Bitcoin is back. It's not dead. So I have to start caring about Bitcoin again. I need to start buy some, start a hardware wallet, get a hardware wallet, making some transactions. Then is when you're going to see the actual fee spike adoption.
True.
That's what I hope and I
Yeah.
believe.
I hope so too. But as you mentioned, hardware wallets, similar to nodes, it's also surprising how many people still buy stack sats and keep them on whatever exchange or app that it is, that they don't actually self-custody their coins, which is kind of which is crazy because Bitcoin's all about you owning your own UTXOs, not trusting someone to have it there. So I'm hoping as the price goes up, it's not anymore Bitcoin's 10,000, 20,000, but Bitcoin's in, the hundreds of thousands. You're like, maybe, just maybe it might make sense for me to hold my own Bitcoin. So I hope also that the NGU part helps with people taking self-custody, and that will, of course, result in higher fees.
Yeah, who knows? It's a process.
Let's see. And another take I wanted to hear about is what's your opinion? I had a few guests lately on the podcast who were kind of mentioning themselves, and I've been thinking of that myself, kind of Coinbase being this honeypot, this, potentially this next black swan event happening. I'm not saying it's going to happen this year, but maybe, in the foreseeable future, either Coinbase somehow getting hacked or getting exposed that they were just selling paper Bitcoin to all these big institutions. Because, if you look at the balances of Coinbase, they don't have that much Bitcoin compared to what they're selling to these ETF players. What's your kind of gut feeling on that?
I think I haven't looked into that, but I think I'm still pretty confident that as a stock listed company,
they're safe.
That they have at least some requirements and audits, and they have a big custody part of Coinbase that many players are using. So I'm not super afraid of Coinbase, but who knows? What I'm more afraid of is just people in general leaving coins on exchanges, especially in US and Europe, where it's getting so heavily regulated nowadays.
Oh yes.
In Europe, you're not even allowed to send coins to whatever wallet without attaching the address
your name
or something on a coin. So that stuff I really despise. I really hate. I hate the EU, and I've been very vocal on Twitter that I just hate the EU. They should just
That's the both of us.
dismantle the Europe. They should just dismantle the European Union. They're just destroying freedom for everyone and making it worse for every single person. So if you live in Europe, you should never just try to avoid exchanges. But if you need to buy Bitcoin, convert to fiat and then just withdraw immediately and just never touch the exchanges anymore. And don't tell them where you're storing your Bitcoin or whatever. That's just your personal matter. So and it's better if you try to use HODL and these P2P exchanges, and you can use Revolut, and there are ways you can buy and sell Bitcoin in a more private manner, and you don't have to use all this crazy Mika travel rule stuff.
Which is insane. Travel rule.
Coinbase can collapse just like FTX collapsed and people lost money, but I don't think you and me were affected by the FTX.
No.
I mean, the blockchain is still the same, right?
To me, I was actually happy, sorry for interrupting, because I did many trades on FTX. So when it collapsed, I was like, okay, there we go. So all that trading history is kind of been rug pulled.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, but it's almost good that it happens now and then to remind people that, because don't get too comfortable with the changes. Even the lending platforms. There were a lot of Bitcoiners I know, and were playing around with this lending platform because, it was this podcaster was shilling this lending platform, so it should be fine. And they're insured or whatever, and then
get on the
collapsed.
BlockFi rocket, Pump used to say, and then it just went, the rocket crashed.
BlockFi collapsed, Celsius collapsed.
Yeah.
I don't know. You can't be saying if you want to put your coins on a lending platform nowadays. There are still a few left, but you must be crazy if you trust a lot of your money on these platforms. You don't know if it's a pyramid scheme or not.
Correct.
Celsius was just a pyramid scheme.
Correct.
And he was walking around with a "Don't Trust Banks" T-shirt. Or something.
Mashinsky was definitely a character in this phase.
Yeah, so there's a lot of these kind of companies or shady stuff that say stuff that you could be tricked, fooled. You just have to stay to the core, Bitcoin values, and trust that it always it works out much better if you just
100%
follow the basic rules. It's so easy, but
peer-to-peer.
Somehow so hard. Just not your keys, not your coins. It sounds hard, but
true.
It sounds easy, but it's so in practice it's hard when people get attracted or lured into like gains or yield or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I also wanted to touch upon this, as you mentioned, with I'm also not a fan of you. I actually packed up my things, sold everything, put into Bitcoin, took my family and departed Europe last April. So I
Oh, nice.
also
Congrats.
yeah, I don't like what's happening. Even prior to Mika, just this whole traditional regulatory banking of proof of funds, proof of this, proof of that, just
Oh, yeah.
insane.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it's my money and I need to be, down to nearly giving you my underwear size just to get my money out. Like it's insane. And then of course with inflation and everything, it was and crime rates, like Europe definitely is not this blossomy democracy wonderland that it was sold as. And
Right.
then, but I want to more specifically focus on the travel rule that came into effect just now, a couple of weeks ago. I actually was discussing this at length in yesterday's recording with Printer from the Go Butter store in Austria. How I'm really shocked that there was no uproar, no protests, no nothing about this coming in. Kind of people
Oh,
sheepishly just went in. I actually
it
remember a
never
year
is.
ago, people were praising Mika, going, "Yeah, we finally have regulation on it, and we." And I was like, how are you praising this? Like, it's like an oxymoron to be regulating this asset class. But
I
here we are
mean, it
today.
was just like a nail in the coffin. I've seen EU go like downhill for many years,
Mm,
and I saw it like 5 years ago, 7 years ago, like what they're doing and the direction. It's just more bureaucracy. They want to regulate everything, and you know what happens. I mean, we've seen it throughout history what happens, and it just stagnates the whole society, the whole economy. Like, who wants to form a Bitcoin company in Europe? Like, no. It seems like a lot of Bitcoin innovation is happening in the US right now, and
yeah.
other places, and there's actually a lot of countries that want to compete now with the Bitcoin, and they want to embrace like this new stuff. But it seems like Europe just regulates everything away. That's their what they think will be best for the citizens or something, which is just insane.
And what do you think specifically on this travel rule? Is this gonna, are they gonna stick with it, or at some point it is gonna go away, or there's no way, like this is the new norm?
I never seen a regulation go away. Like the
Okay.
cookies, you have the cookie banners. Do you think they ever will remove
No,
that rule that you
no,
don't have to
true.
have a cookie warning anymore? Like regulations come and they never go away until you like
They're like
you
super
do
glue.
a
Once applied, you're never taking it off.
no, I think it has to like go to a point when it's stagnation and you have to do a melee.
Hmm.
Use the chainsaw, cut away.
Chop it all up.
You just have to come to a point when you realize this doesn't work. People lose trust in the whole system and everything collapses and you have to start anew or something. It happened in other countries. It happened to
Of course.
the Soviet Union. Like at some point, everyone just stopped believing in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And hopefully people just stop believing in the European Union. I don't think people are very nationalistic about the European flag and the European
No.
government, and we don't even know who's the leader of the European Union. Like
Feels like
who
it's
voted?
forced
Did I
upon the
vote for this
Europeans,
guy?
right?
No, it's very forced. And all over Europe, you're seeing EU critical parties are gaining more traction. I think we're seeing the beginning of the end to the whole corrupt EU project.
Yeah.
It's going to get much worse before it gets better, which is why I also don't see a future for myself or my family in the
Mm,
in the Eurozone right now. I
yeah.
mean, it's nice to visit a few months. I can go visit, but I don't want to be like
Base there.
affiliated or have their own because it seems to be so hard to just do anything. Like if you just have a personal bank account or a corporate bank account, I mean, they'll just shut down your bank account randomly, or if you want to
With
sell
zero
or live on Bitcoin.
explanation, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's like, it feels like you can't even live normally because they're just setting roadblocks everywhere.
Yeah.
Like if I would run like Mempool.space or something, I would never be able to do that from Europe.
Of
Like
course.
live my Bitcoin lifestyle. I don't think so. No.
Sounds like a dictatorship, right? And the EU is very like oppressive on
Yeah.
dictators, but they feel like it seems like to me like they're the biggest dictator and bully, telling people how they should live their lives and what products you
Mm,
can sell as a business, which is crazy. So
yeah.
I guess your advice to the listeners would be get out of Europe as soon as you can before things get worse.
I mean, I know a lot of Bitcoiners that have moved out of their countries. It seems very normal. Like
Mm,
you start something or you start with Bitcoin and then you start freeing yourself. And when you freed yourself, you can start shopping around. Like what is the best place for me and my family in the future? And they start moving to other places or plant flags
yeah.
other places. It seems very common in the Bitcoin space. like the early adopters of Bitcoin are usually very free thinkers. Like discovering Bitcoin when everyone says it's a scam, like or a Ponzi or something is going to
Yeah.
crash. Like it requires something special. Like you doing your own research, thinking a bit more for yourself, and you also are able to see through the system. Like maybe the system isn't the best for the economy or for the future of my family. Maybe there's another way, and start freeing yourself, right?
Yeah, and you know, being on the Bitcoin standard, it's very easy to just pack up your stuff and go. You don't have to do large transfers to another country, or like in the good old days, packing a suitcase full of gold and going to cross the border and be explaining and declaring stuff, which in most cases is going to get confiscated. But like,
Yeah,
you
like
have your
as
seed
a
phrase and you're
Bitcoiner, you
out.
almost get very like used to this lifestyle already. Like after living in this kind of life for several years, it's almost get you just forget that it's in like an historical standpoint, it's totally crazy that you can just have your money in your head and you can just move somewhere else and earn your income online from another country while living in the third country. Like that's I think that's like totally unheard of. Like until just years ago with the internet age and now the Bitcoin age. But for us now working in Bitcoin, running Bitcoin companies, getting paid in Bitcoin and pay our salaries in Bitcoin, like this is already normal for us.
Mm,
And we are a small, tiny minority.
true.
I mean, it's like growing. I guess it's going to start growing. And as more people adopting Bitcoin and understand this, that they can break free more from the system, they will liberate themselves.
For sure. Simon, have you read the Self-Sovereign Individual book by any chance?
No, I haven't.
But
I haven't
you've
read it the
certainly
whole.
heard
But
about
I
it.
know I'm very familiar with the concepts.
Okay. Yeah. So I finished reading it a few months ago, right before Christmas, and like I had the goosebumps. This book was, you know, written and published 30 plus years ago.
Like,
And it like
yes.
exactly pinpoints the blueprint of like living on a
Mm,
Bitcoin standard where you're anywhere in the world, you know, you're not working for the state anymore. You're
yeah.
actually providing value. You're living on digital money. And I was like it was crazy that I was reading about
And
this book.
government has to compete,
Correct.
like
To
going to
keep you
the like shop around.
correct.
And it's funny how government doesn't see it that way yet. So
True.
they think you're like a slave to the government. Like, hey,
Yeah.
come here, pay 50-60% tax. I'm like, no, that's like the worst deal ever. Like there are actually other options here. They
True.
think they have you in like a snare or something.
True.
Yeah, I read a lot of like just paragraphs, quotes from the book,
Yeah.
and
No.
it's like that. It's like suddenly these cattle that are in the tax farm, they suddenly have wings and they can go anywhere.
No, it is. What a time to be alive. You know, a lot of people are very negative and pessimistic about, oh, back when my
Mm.
parents were around, it was so much better. Things were stable, things were this and that. But I'm on the contrary. Like, listen, like when your parents were young, they didn't have the ability to just work from anywhere on their laptop
Right.
and get paid with the currency that's essentially unconfiscatable and uncensorable. You know, you always had,
Yeah.
and there wasn't even wire payments, which I'm not praising them in any sense, but like everything was cash related and it was so limiting. And now if you have a good idea and you have the work ethic, it's endless
Mm.
possibilities that you can do in Bitcoin and outside of Bitcoin. So, I mean, what a time to be alive. And instead of people praising this time, I don't know, is it the media, the brainwashing that's happening? Like it feels like people are like very depressed, like, oh my God, like it's terrible times to be alive. But in Bitcoin, it feels like it's the best time to be in life.
Yeah, and I like the opening like keynote from American Hodl at I think it's called the Cheat Code conference that Peter McCormack had,
Yeah, yeah.
and he was like, everyone is complaining about the inflation and stuff, but when the inflation, like they printed the most money, that's when Bitcoin like went up the most. Like Bitcoiners are not totally not affected.
Yeah,
Our lives has just been improved
true.
basically when the inflation was at the most. While other people suffer, we're like in the lifeboats getting saved.
And the more they print, the more kind of the fiat currencies lose their value. On the contrary, Bitcoin gets more purchasing power. So it's like an
And it seems like
opposite.
Bitcoiners like are really looking forward to the printer. Like the printer is coming. Like everyone's just happy, because we know it's gonna happen. It's just better it comes sooner than later because we know when it's gonna start printing. All this money is gonna flow into assets, and Bitcoin is gonna go to the moon, and all the Bitcoiners are gonna get saved.
True.
While society just losing based in the fiat currencies.
Well, the US is having a returning president who was very happy on the printer. So I think printing is going to go parabolic.
It doesn't matter who is in
Which
office.
president?
They're always going to print higher than before. There's no,
True.
that's like the
fiat nature. Amazing. So Simon, going back to the mempool space, kind of what is your like long-term vision? I know you don't have a crystal ball in your hand, but like, are there any upcoming like, features or expansions or something you're particularly excited about, and kind of where do you see it progressing in 5 years? I know it's a tough question, but like just out of everything that's already happened, what do you see like the grand picture for
I know
mempool?
there's a lot of people ask me always when I meet them. They ask, "Oh, so what?" Especially when I announce like the new features and stuff, and I was, "So what's the next feature? What's the next thing?" And actually, I don't have like a long list of like visionary features for Mempool.space right now, but we're continuously like innovating and doing new stuff that I didn't know would exist like a few months ago. Like we're working a lot on, like, for example, improving the whole auditing of all the mining pools and stuff. There was one guy, I don't know how to pronounce it, like 0x something, and he had this tool where he analyzed all the jobs from all the mining pools, and you can visualize like how the block constructions from all the pools are going to become. And that is something we've been working on as well, like a whole visualization on like all the mining jobs going on.
Amazing.
And we like auditing and visualizing the mining pool infrastructure, which helps with like revealing how centralized and how decentralized the whole mining sphere is.
Yeah.
So we're doing more and more partnerships with the mining pools, especially with also the accelerator feature. And the mining pools usually want to market themselves more, want to be seen more, and they want to show how much hash rate they have. There's always a lot of stuff coming up on like the mining side. And then we have more like research reports we just launched last year something called the Mempool Research. So you can go to Mempool.space/research, and we have like very well written and research articles that analyze different stuff. So
awesome.
We have like one report on merge mining, which side chains are being merge mined by which mining pool and when. And we have like 2 or 3 like these reports being worked on as we speak that is going to be published sometime in the future.
Oh, that's incredible. I had no idea about these reports. I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. So, and then we have like, we are exploring like making explorers for like more upcoming layer 2 networks, like the ARC side network, or like layer 2 system, which is probably like the second layer 2 after Lightning. So we are like exploring making maybe a block explorer feature for that as well. But yeah, we have a lot of good stuff that I can't reveal either.
No,
but
that's fine.
We're working hard.
You are indeed, and we see that. But I wanted to bring up one thing that you mentioned, the accelerator feature, which was long awaited, and maybe some listeners that don't know what an accelerator feature is. The TLDR essentially is if your transaction has a low fee and it's not getting cleared, you can basically bump up, pay like it's a one-off fee, right, to the miner to clear it. Or how does that work behind the scenes?
Yeah, I can tell you like what the history was. It was actually already back in 2019 when me and Wiz was working with Mempool.space, and the site started to get traction. The number one like question we get from people all the time, like from they send emails, they send DMs on Twitter, every possible way they reach out and ask, please, my transaction is stuck.
Can you push
Can
it?
you fix that? And obviously we can't. We just an explorer. We can't. So Wiz immediately thought like, what if we made a service where we actually can solve the problem for this? Because this is like the number one problem. And he thought about that already in 2019. And I thought it was a pretty crazy idea. How is that even possible? I don't know, but that was actually how we like started like the idea and when we formed the company. And that was like the long-term business model. We never really told anybody about this business model, and I was a bit skeptical that it would actually work, but it really took off when we were able to sign up almost all the mining pools. So what we're doing is that we're bribing the mining pool off band. if some guy just have a stuck transaction and they don't know how to bump the fee for various reasons, it can be a lot of different reasons. Like maybe someone sent them coins and they don't know how to bump the fee, or they have a wallet that don't have a fee bumping feature and they're stuck. They don't want to import it. They don't know how to import the private keys to another one. There's a lot of reasons, and they can just push a button on Mempool.space and accelerate, and they can pay with Lightning or Apple Pay. And we just send we charge a service fee, and then we send the rest of the mining pools, and they just bump the transaction off band. And in most cases, it will get confirmed in the very next block. They just pay like the difference up to what you had to be to confirm. If you have 1 sat and the current fee market to get in is like 20 sats, it will be bumped up to 20 sats. So we have people constantly accelerating now. Like it's it's a very
Good
used
business
feature
model.
already. Although and we haven't really seen it like when the fees are really high, because we launched it just after like the latest like Rune having craze. That's like when we opened up the feature for real, like for public. So we're still waiting for this fee spike and see like how many are actually going to use it. But a lot of people are using it. And we also, this kind of service of bumping off-chain has existed for many years before, but you have to go like straight to a mining pool, like straight to some mining pool website, and you pay them with Tron or something. And then you have to wait for this particular mining pool to find a block. So it's been this ways. So we are the first ones that actually connect all the mining pools. So you get like almost 90%, like 95% chance of getting your accelerated transaction in the next block. We have everything, also compared to everyone else, we have it all fully transparent. So you can go to Mempool.space and go to the accelerated tab, and you can see all the accelerations and what's the out of band fee, what people are paying. And even if you click on a block, you can see the purple transactions that are accelerated transactions. So you can see that this was the off-band fee. So we're trying to keep it as open and transparent as possible as well. And
Amazing.
so you can see that on a good day, like on a busy day, we can have like hundreds or like 100, maybe 100 accelerated transactions. I can see now that like the past 24 hours, we had around 50 accelerated transactions. So there are people using this service. So
amazing.
It's quite nice now when people come and say, "Hey, my transaction is stuck." Oh yeah, just click the button. It's very nice.
You made it nice and simple, and that's what people need. Like not going like as you said. And some people either don't technically know how to do it, or they're limited with the wallet that they're using that doesn't have that option. And now just like Mempool.
And it was very hard. Like while we were working on Mempool, it was very hard for me to find like how can we have an open source product that's free for everyone to use and make money somehow, because we have a policy, no banners, for example, like no advertising, no tracking. Like so, how can we possibly like earn money? But this is like the only thing that's actually integrated, like a small button you click and you can accelerate, and that's like going to be one of the main business model. The other business, like a lot of people ask, like, how do we make money? And the accelerator is like half of the thing, and the other half is like the whole enterprise system. So like we built out this whole infrastructure of mempool nodes and Bitcoin nodes and Electrum servers. So we're also providing like high uptime, high reliable like Bitcoin data backend infrastructure to wallets and services and all around the world as well to a growing number of enterprise customers. So that's something that a lot of people don't see, but that's also an excellent way of financing like an open source project, because the website is free and you can download the source code and run it to your own node. But actually having a reliable infrastructure that can serve thousands of or hundreds of thousands of users, maybe for your use case, we're not setting that's something we can charge for because we own the infrastructure.
Of course. And another thing which I really like, which I saw on your website, you have like a contributor supporters page where as a normal pleb, you can go and contribute and get like, you have different tiers of different things that you get per year. Was that there from the beginning as a way to support the project, or that was just something that came on afterwards?
It was one of the earliest thing we made to support the product, like community sponsorship. And I think we had it as early as 2020 or sometime summer 2020. We launched it as a community thing where you can just show off that you are contributing to open source. And I didn't think that many people would just give money to show, but a lot of people care about showing like their respect. Proudly, I'm supporting Mempool.space. And now also we made this whole, we're working with a Samsung Mouse cypherpunk store. So we have a whole swag package with mugs, color changing mugs, t-shirts, lots of stuff. And if you are signing up to as a community, showing you're a community sponsor, you get your profile photo on the about page.
Yeah.
And you get the whole, you get a like a special coupon code so you can redeem like the whole Mempool swag package from the Cypherpunk store to get home. And people feel like part. It's showing off on Twitter, like showing like I'm supporting the Mempool project, so like being a part of something like this open source Bitcoin movement.
Yeah, I know. I think
nice.
I think it's beautiful, and you know, people that don't maybe have the ideas of how they can contribute back, you know, this is another way, you know, that you can show your appreciation for a project that you truly use and love, you know, by contributing to it. And the fact that, you know, you can have your profile pic on there on the actual website and getting your swag package, I think it's super nice. And I think more and more projects should also adopt that, because it's a nice way to kind of to feel people proud about the projects that they're supporting. Perfect. So Simon, to kind of round it up as we were approaching the 1 hour mark, I usually close off the episodes with asking my guests, what is one piece of advice you'd give to someone new to Bitcoin? What would that be? And especially in the case that we said that kind of retail's not here yet. So if any potential future retail Bitcoiners are listening to this episode, what is one piece of advice you would share with them?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, there's so many obvious ones, like not your keys, not your coins. But I think everyone already know that. So, and it also feels weird to give price advice and stuff. Like when everyone is euphoric about Bitcoin, it's gonna change the world. Maybe it's not the best time to go all in, which is probably might gonna start happening in like the coming year or so. You have to be humble to that. Adoption is growing, but it goes through bubble phases as well. So it's better to just try to keep your emotions intact. And if you're gonna start buying Bitcoin, it's better to just buy every month rather than just, because then you average out. Even if it's pumping or crashing or going up and down like crazy, you'll always get like a better average price, and you'll feel better about having a more safe and secure like investment, because it's a very common mistake to just you get dragged into all the FOMO and then you just go all in, and then it crashes 50% and you lose half of your value, and you maybe panic style because you didn't read enough to be having conviction enough. A lot of people, if they studied Bitcoin enough and they buy and they see it crash, they're actually not bothered, because Bitcoin hasn't changed at all. The fundamentals are just exactly the same. So the price doesn't really reflect the fundamentals. So I guess that's good to keep in mind.
I like it. No, I think that's excellent advice.
I think the fundamentals is just getting better and better every day, but the price is not necessarily reflecting the fundamentals. It's reflecting it, but on a very long-term, slow, steady,
low time preference. No, I agree. You know, that's the same advice I give to people always when they're asking me, you know, is now a good time to get into Bitcoin? I tell them, listen, just start DCAing a little bit every month. And, you know, no matter if we're in the peak bull market or we're in the bear market, you're going to slowly accumulate your stack. And if we tomorrow dip 30%, you won't be having this, you know, semi heart attack and like, why did I do it? On the contrary, if it dips 30%, it's actually good because your DCA average price goes down because you just buy more instead of selling, you know, buying high, selling low, the more traditional new normie to the game strategy. So yeah, I think that's excellent advice. So don't go all in, start slowly, but consistently accumulate sats. I think is an important thing to take away. Perfect. Simon, is there anything else you wanted to share with our listeners? Anything that we didn't cover on the episode or anything else you had in mind?
I think that's about it. And it's you if you have any more questions for me.
No, the last question I would ask was essentially, where can we send our listeners that want to connect with you and you know, support Mempool.space?
Okay.
Where would that be?
I mean, Mempool.space, but if you want to connect with me, I'm on Twitter or Nostr, just Soft Simon.
Perfect.
If you search, you'll probably find.
I think there's not too many Soft Simons on X and Nostr.
Not so many.
Perfect. Well, Simon, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time to come on today. I really enjoyed the backstory of how Mempool.space actually got around. Thank you for taking us on an exciting journey of ups and downs. I think we covered a lot of interesting aspects here, from your keys, your coins to running nodes, and future things that are here to come. Thanks to everyone that's listening. Simon, thanks a lot for everything you're doing for the space. I wish you and the team all the greatest success. And as we progress in our Bitcoin journeys, because this is only the beginning, we'd love to have you back in the future to see how things are unraveling. And I'm sure there'll be some exciting, spicy topics to cover. So until then, all the best, Simon, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Sure. Thank you. Just reach out anytime.
Thank you for tuning in. If this episode resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit too. Your support keeps us going, and we appreciate it. See you in the next one.